The Unyielding Pillars of Mystrikism. For a Mystrik, ethical decision-making rests on two stubborn supports: justice and honesty. Justice is not just kindness with a grander hat on. Kindness is the first tool we reach for, and it should be. It is often the least harmful way to do the job. But it is still a tool, not the whole toolbox. Justice is the wider discipline. Kindness where kindness can work, firmness where firmness is needed, and principled opposition when harm or deception keeps going. Honesty means the scientific kind, such as following reality as carefully as we can, even when it leads somewhere awkward, uncomfortable, or inconvenient. Compromise has its place, of course. Most human conflict needs some give and take. But Mystrikism draws a hard line around these two supports. Justice and scientific honesty are not optional extras. Weaken either one enough, and the whole thing starts losing its shape. Mystrikism can learn from utilitarianism and deontology without becoming either. Utilitarian thinking is useful because consequences matter. If a decision affects patients, workers, animals, children, or whole ecosystems, then we had better care about what actually happens, not just what sounds noble in our heads. Deontology has something important to offer, too. It reminds us that duties like honesty, consent, dignity, fairness, and non-harm cannot simply be waved away because someone has done a bit of moral arithmetic and decided the numbers look convenient. Mystrikism takes both seriously, but it refuses to hand the steering wheel to either one. Outcome calculation must not become an excuse for dishonesty or cruelty. Rule following must not become so rigid that it ignores evidence, context, proportion, or the damage happening right in front of us. Justice and scientific honesty need to keep correcting each other. Neither gets to bully the other into silence. That is why Mystrikism is not interested in lazy, middle ground answers, when the middle ground is just a quieter form of surrender. Sometimes compromise is wise. Sometimes it is just a tidy-looking way to betray the thing that mattered. A better answer may not sit neatly halfway between two positions. It may require more imagination than that. A path that protects justice without lying and protects honesty without becoming cold or careless. For Mystriks, justice begins with a plain but demanding question. Does this action reduce avoidable harm, support a decent life, and treat sapient beings, sentient life, and ecosystems with fair proportion? That is the basic test. Not the whole of ethics, but we think it is the best place to start. Justice is not merely being nice or courteous. It is not avoiding conflict so nobody gets upset. It is not protecting someone's pride from every uncomfortable fact. And it is definitely not blind tolerance of harmful behavior, dishonest claims, destructive ideologies, or pernicious misinformation. Justice includes kindness, yes, but also accountability, proportionate resistance, and principled opposition when harm or persistent deception continues. Kindness on its own can be a bit gullible. That sounds harsh, but it is true. People can be kind in ways that enable abuse, excuse manipulation, or protect comforting falsehoods because challenging them feels unpleasant. Mystrikal justice avoids that trap. It cares about people, but it also asks harder questions. What is actually happening here? What can be verified? Who is being harmed? What response is fair? What consequences are likely if we do nothing? Compassion matters. Emotional pain should not be mocked or brushed aside just because it is messy, inconvenient, or not perfectly rational. Humans are not little logic machines with shoes on. We grieve, panic, cling, deny, and double down. A Mystrik should understand that. Still, not all discomfort is harm. Sometimes distress comes from cognitive dissonance, wounded pride, ideological attachment, or the nasty little shock of meeting better evidence than the belief can survive. In those moments, justice does not ask us to sand truth down until it becomes harmless. It asks us to be humane without being dishonest. Honesty, in Mystrikism, is not bluntness for its own sake. It is not, "I am just telling it like it is," used as a crowbar. It is also not the vague modern habit of treating my truth as if personal sincerity can settle questions about reality. Honesty means discipline. It means evidence, logic, verification, falsifiability, correction, and humility before what we do not yet know. Scientific honesty means reality gets a vote. More than a vote, really. It gets the deciding vote. That can be uncomfortable. Sometimes the evidence ruins a favorite belief. Sometimes it complicates a moral story we wanted to keep simple. Sometimes it shows that our good intentions were not producing good results. Fine. Better an uncomfortable correction than a polished mistake. This is where honesty strengthens justice. Without honesty, compassion can drift into wishful thinking. Moral passion can become dogma with a warm face. We might feel righteous while doing very little good, or even making things worse. Evidence helps us ask whether an action actually protects people, reduces harm, improves safety, or merely gives us the emotional satisfaction of feeling decent. But the correction runs the other way too. Honesty without justice can become thin, sharp, and inhuman. Facts matter, but people are not lab equipment. A mystic should not use truth as a weapon just because it is available. The question is not only whether something is true, but how it should be handled, what it affects, and what responsibility comes with knowing it. That is why Mystrikism resists any claim that demands immunity from evidence, ideological absolutes, supernatural claims, political dogmas, personal feelings, sacred traditions, or whatever else tries to place itself behind glass. If a belief affects real beings, it is open to scrutiny. If an ethical choice has consequences, intention is not enough. We have to look at outcome, proportion, context, and the best information available. A mystic can be wrong. Obviously, we are human, and all humans are magnificent little error factories. The point is not to pretend otherwise. The point is to notice, correct course, and do better when better evidence or better reasoning turns up. The strongest progress tends to happen when compassion and evidence work together. Science without ethical concern can become dangerous. Compassion without honest testing can become naive. Justice and scientific honesty, held together, give Mystrikism its practical strength, caring without self-deception, and truth-seeking without abandoning decency. That is the line worth holding. Not compromise at any cost, not truth without care, not kindness without courage. A mystic aims for something harder, principled adaptation in service of life, truth, and a better way of living in reality.